when you're just starting out taking photos or videos, or yeah, I think that's about everything that you can do with the camera, is it? Like, yeah, I think so. The hardest part is probably gonna be buying the actual camera, because cameras are expensive and lenses are really expensive, especially if you go full frame. I think like the cheapest full frame camera on the market right now is the Canon EOS RP. Correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe it's the cheapest mirrorless camera on the market right now. And I think it's around like $1,000. Hang on, let me check just to make sure. Canon EOS RP. Okay, it was a little bit more, it's like $12.99, but that is like the cheapest full-frame mirrorless camera that you can buy as of the recording of this video. But when it comes to APS-C cameras, there's a lot of different options out there that you can buy. You got the Sony a6400, EOS M50, I think. Yeah, there's a bunch of different options, but I thought I'd share my opinions on the Sony a6000, because I actually think that this might be one of the best budget cameras that you can buy right now. But before we get to it, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone that has joined in here lately. You guys are amazing, so thanks so much for that. And if you're watching me for the first time, then you might want to consider hitting that subscribe button, because that would be really appreciated. And to everyone that has been here for a while, like Enforcer Man, Paul Feinberg, Robert McDonald, all of you know who you are. You guys rock. Thank you so much for all the support that I'm getting. It is totally unreal. So yeah, let's talk about the camera, okay? So I recently shot a video with this camera and the kit lens, and I gotta say, like, it turned out way above my expectations. And I shot that entire video completely handheld in full HD, 60 frames per second, and the quality actually looks really, really good. But there's a bunch of different things that you don't get in the Sony a6000 that you get in the Sony a6400 or a6300 or a6500 even, such as the picture profiles, because when it comes to picture profiles, I personally always shoot in S-Log with my a7 III and a7R III to get this flat look, so it looks really, really flat, and then I just color grade it. And that is something that is missing in this camera, but when you go up to the a6400, that is something that is included. But if you are really good at like getting the correct exposure, that is something that you probably will not need, and the a6400 is like twice the price as this one. So what I really like about this camera is, first off, the form factor, because I really think that the form factor of this camera is really, really good. I like this. The only downside of it is the grip. I wish it was a little bit deeper, just like the a6600, which is perfect. When it comes to the build quality of this camera, it does feel a little bit plasticky, and it does feel kind of cheap as well. But I gotta say, Sony did actually put in a lot of different stuff in this camera, because like this was, I think this was the first a6000 series camera that dropped. That's because it's called a6000. Oh. And then you of course have the small battery, because this is the NPFW50 battery, which is really, really bad. You gotta have like 8 of these if you want to shoot video for a full day. That is like, and the bigger battery that is in the a7R3, a7 III, and a6600 is way better. Like that is like, you can use one battery the entire day and then you have to charge it. It also doesn't have any kind of built-in stabilization to the sensors, such as the a7 III, a6600, a6500. But what is cool with this is that the kit lens actually has optical steady shot, and I think it does a really, really good job of keeping the image steady when you're shooting handheld. So I don't think that IBIS is something that you need to have when when you're just starting out, because like IBIS is a feature that you pay extra for, and it's not something that will help you to shoot way better videos. The sensor is a 24.3 megapixel sensor, which is basically the same across the entire A6000 range, I think. I think they are using like kind of the same sensor. So when it comes to photos, you can have some really high resolution pictures because of that 24 megapixel sensor, and it's gonna be more than enough when you're just starting out, because like again, we're talking about a budget camera that you don't pay more. I think on Amazon right now it's like $448, so that is actually really cheap for what you get in this camera. And when it comes to the video side, like that is like my main thing, because I'm more invested into the video thing than a photo thing. And like here on the channel, we talk more about the video than photos, right? That's kind of our thing now. Like we don't do as much photo tutorials. Maybe I should do more of those. I don't know. What do you think? Like drop a comment if you want me to do more of those kind of tutorials. 4K is something that is missing when it comes to video on this camera. And I gotta say, like, it's not something that I think is necessary, because the main thing that I actually shoot 4K in is these videos. But when I'm shooting events or something like that, I usually do not shoot in 4K because you can't get that high frame rate in the camera. So I usually go down to like 50 FPS or 100 FPS, depending on what it is that I'm shooting. So in this camera, you got 1080p, 60 frames per second, which is really good. And to be completely honest, I think that the image quality of the 1080p in this camera actually looked better than when I had my A6300. So I'm actually really impressed by the image quality that you can get from this camera. So when it comes to the autofocus, it does have 179 face detect AF points, and when it comes to the contrast detection, it only has 25. So comparing that to the Sony a7 III, for example, then the Sony a7 III has like 699 face detection points and then like 499 contrast points. So there's definitely a huge difference in that, but then again, like there's a huge difference in the budget as well. Another downside of the camera is that it doesn't have any kind of microphone input in the camera, so you can't use an external mic. So if you're looking for a vlogging camera, I would not recommend this camera, because you know, like you really need to have a shotgun mic if you go out and about and do a lot of vlogs, because you really want the audio quality to be really good. And to get that microphone jack, you gotta go up to the A6300 or the A6400. But then again, like then you are doubling the price. So when I was looking through the full HD footage of the Sony a7 III and the A6000, I gotta say, like I'm actually not seeing that much of a difference. I do think that this camera holds up pretty darn good. And when it comes to the kit lens that you get when you buy the camera, I think it's actually really good. It's definitely not the best lens that is out there, because there's way better lenses, but this is a really good lens to start out with, because you have the 16 to 50 millimeter aperture, which is gonna be a full frame equivalent to like 24 to 75. And that is gonna give you really good opportunities to take some really good photos, because when you are at the widest, you're gonna have a 3.5 aperture. And then if you go up to 50 millimeter, then it's gonna close a little. So that is a bit of a downer as well. The best thing is of course going to be to have a lens that is a fixed aperture, such as the Tamron 20-5 or the Zeiss 1635 f4 or something like that, because when you zoom, your exposure will not change, and that's really good. So this camera is definitely lacking a couple of things, such as 120 frames per second in full HD and the microphone input. And of course, if you want to have the IBIS and the 4K and all that, but then you got to go and play in a completely different league. But considering the price of the camera house and the lens together, which is like $448, I gotta say, this is probably like one of the best budget cameras that I've tried in 2019. Like I really like what this camera can produce. So I actually do think that this camera is a really good starting point if you wanna like don't break your budget straight out of the box and buy something that is gonna be a really good still camera and a really good video camera, because I actually think the image quality in both of these departments of this camera is really good. I would love to know what you think, because personally I'm really impressed by this camera, and I do think it's a fantastic piece of equipment to buy if you just want to start out taking photos, practice your skill, or shooting videos and get better at that. But then again, do remember that if you want to start up a YouTube channel, it doesn't have the microphone input, and in that case I would probably go for something like the Canon M50, because it's kind of the same price range. And yeah, I would love to know what you think and hear your comments on this camera down below. So shoot away. All right. Nej. Så var det med det. Then we're gonna set a clock set to 27 minutes. I'm gonna put it right here.